Welcome to Real Estate Hot Wired. Maggie Rose March will be your host today. She is an informed voice for the novice investor, a voice of reason for the seasoned investor. And we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Maggie Rose March. Welcome back to this week's show where we're talking with Robert Parker, who's become my favorite guest. And we're talking about dispelling some of the myths regarding the difficulties of financing money to invest in real estate, or finding money to invest in real estate. I knew what we were talking about. Now you don't. Part 3, if you missed last week, but Part 1 and or Part 2, you can listen on societybitesradio.com or maggierosemarch.com. Robert, welcome back.
Thank you, Maggie Rose. Glad to be back for our third week. I can't believe it already, huh?
And I would like to just quickly review your bio, because I feel like there are some people that maybe are tuning in for the first time and they need to know a little bit about you.
Sure.
Our guest today is Robert Parker, the managing partner of Flip It Funding, LLC. Flip It Funding is a private hard money lender based in Sarasota, Florida, that loans money to fix and flip investors in Florida and Connecticut, as well as investors that need bridge financing for buy and hold income properties. So they do both. Robert has been successfully buying, fixing, and selling real estate since 2000 and has been providing private lending for over 8 years. He's extremely passionate about real estate, loves helping his borrowers build wealth, and is here to share some of his knowledge. So, Robert, let's try and pick up where we left off, because we didn't finish everything we were going to look at before we jump into some of the more sophisticated things that can happen for the more advanced investor.
Sure, yeah. Last week, Maggie Rose, we were talking about a little bit about how investors or borrowers should approach hard money lenders or other private money lenders in terms of what we look for. I was sharing that our company kind of looks at four things. I call it the four-legged stool. We want to kind of do a little bit of analysis on the borrower, the property, the financials, and make sure they've got a sound exit strategy. And I was also kind of sharing some tips with you, for your listeners to know if they're looking to borrow money, that they know their numbers. What's the purchase price, their rehab budget, what are the holding costs and closing costs. I see all the time on Facebook. In some of the wholesaling groups that I'm in, you'll get this first timer who's got a property under contract, and they're saying, "Hey, buy it at $150, put $50 into it, and then sell it for $240." That's a potential profit of $40,000, and it's like, well, wait a minute. It's like you've got selling costs, you've got carry costs, utilities, property taxes, insurance, and they just they're new to the game, and any seasoned investor is going to know that they're missing some things and there's some holes in their plan. But that's the part of the learning process. So, sometimes it's our job to kind of show them, what holes need to be filled and say, hey, these are some things to look at. Maybe for your first one, just to make sure you've got it covered, you want to team up with somebody. Or a great resource, and I'm a member of, the Connecticut REIA in Connecticut and two of the REIAs down here in Florida. The REIA groups, I mean, you've got some members in there that are 70, 80 years old, and they've got decades of real estate experience. And you've got new people in there. You've got, and then some of the, it's just such a breadth of knowledge in these groups. I mean, you might have agents that have been agents for 30 years. I know down here in Florida, this was kind of one of the ground zero places for the real estate collapse of 2007, 2008.
Yeah, they got hit hard here.
We have borrowers down here that have lost it all. They went through foreclosures, they went through short sales and bankruptcies. And so it's things didn't hit quite as bad up in Connecticut, but I know other parts of the country, Las Vegas was a bad area, but so anyway, there's a lot. The point I was making was there's a lot of experience out there, and don't be afraid to show up at these meetings. I mean, memberships for some of these meetings can be as low as $100 a year. I mean, what a great resource! You're talking $2 a week, and they meet weekly. Some meet monthly, but weekly. I know that's where I spend a lot of my time, and that's where I met you.
Yeah, that is how we met. And $100 for a year membership versus, $30,000 for a program that's going to teach you how to do this. And then you sit there and you see these people come in and they think they've figured it all out, and your heart kind of breaks for them because there's so much they don't know. And the problem with what we don't know we don't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's the passion behind why I advocate. That's why this show is started in the first place. Is I care that people learn. If you're going to invest your money, adjust your attitude and invest some time in understanding, researching, and learning what you don't know, and learn. The fact that people think the money is difficult, the fact that they think it's hard to find the money fascinates me, because the easiest part of good investing is finding the money.
Yeah,
the hard part's finding a good deal.
Yep. Nope, I would agree with that completely. If a borrower's got a great deal, I'll try to figure out a way, either marrying a couple people that I know. I mean, I've even put multiple prospective borrowers in touch with one another, or if I've got a new potential borrower that's interested in doing something, I'll reach out to one of our seasoned borrowers and I'll say, hey, can you talk to this guy or gal and see maybe if you want to team up with them? Because that first time out, if you've got a mentor by your side, or I have, to give you an example, up in Connecticut, we've got one of our savvy and sophisticated borrowers. Has got a very large portfolio, over 100 rental doors, and over a bunch of buildings, I think 20 or 30 buildings or something like that. And got some of the collateral is owned free and clear. And another borrower came to us who I know is a friend of his. And I said, he didn't have the requisite cash to put in the deal. Well, here's a creative solution. The sophisticated borrower put up the collateral for the new lender, or for the new borrower, and the new borrower is paying a fee to the seasoned investor to borrow his collateral. And so, it's a way for that asset, even though it's sitting free and clear. I think the fee that was charged in this particular example was a $10,000 asset collateralization fee, and it's something new that. Another lender, that's one thing we kind of pride ourselves on, the creativity that we have. So we use cross-collateralization, and that's basically putting one loan on multiple properties. We do that a lot for our borrowers because maybe they've got a portfolio that they're working with and they don't know when something's going to sell, or they need to borrow money to get some other projects done, but they've got these things on the market. They need to access the cash, but they don't know when things are going to pay off. And so, one of our at one point, we cross-collateralized 6 properties for one borrower, and then they do a partial pay down on the outstanding loan every time one of the properties is sold. And what's great about that is, we got all the closing costs in one loan, so we didn't have to do 6 individual loans for that borrower. And then for us, it's less risk for us as the lender too. Because,
absolutely.
If we've got 6 properties out there under one loan, and say, maybe I missed an insurance certificate renewal and I didn't ask the borrower for it, and the borrower missed renewing, and one of the properties, God forbid, was taken out by a fire, that loan is still secured by the other 5 properties. And so it's less of a risk for us the more stuff that we collateralize, and there's more flexibility for the borrower. So it's a great opportunity, for somebody that says, oh, well, I want you to go finance this. I own these free and clear. And it's like for us to just add those properties on and get them whatever money they need. Oftentimes we can do 100% financing on the new property that they're looking to acquire because they're throwing the other assets in there. And so it's not, it's 100% on that building, even though they're cross-collateralizing, and our loan-to-value is often in those situations less than 50%.
So you're secured, But and for a new investor, somebody who really doesn't know the ropes and has an opportunity to work with somebody who will do that for them, you're opening a door to like a training field. I mean, you're really opening opportunity for them to get better at what they're doing, to have the opportunity to do it, and to learn from the masters. Because if the buddy is the one that sent him in the first place is saying, you know, go talk to Robert, and then Robert's saying, well, you need more equity in this somehow, we have to get it, and you need to team up, you're not quite strong enough on your own. And that's what I want the novice investor to understand, is that don't go into this with like a plate of food. It's not. You know, go into it understanding that there's so many things you don't know. I one of the things coming from Massachusetts, and I came from homes that were 200 years old. I mean, we know about sewer pipes and changing pipes and wiring and all that, but the water here, I've never seen anything like what the water is like here in Florida. It is really invasive. It's very aggressive, and as a realtor, I want to recommend that everybody that I don't care if the house is only 10 years old, but seriously, if it's more than 10 years, scope your pipes.
Yeah. No,
seriously, scope your pipes. I mean, that's a little bit of money that you have to spend to learn. But if you get into what you think is going to be a fluff and buff because the house is relatively new and it's past the Chinese drywall and you don't have to worry about the lead paint ruling, when you're thinking, oh, I'm home free, I'm just going to come in and make this thing pretty and put it back out there. And then the buyer's smarter than you and comes in and says, well, I just want to scope the pipes and have a termite. And those are two things you fail. Well, you failed big, and it cost you big. And that's the kind of thing that we're dedicated in this show to try and help people understand. Think like an investor. Always.
Well, and that's why it's important to kind of team up and go to these things and really pick the brain of those who have done it, those who
are doing
blazed the trail before you. You know, don't be afraid to ask for help, because, you know, I had almost purchased a property down here when I first got down to Florida. It was an auction property that one of my borrowers had under contract. I was looking for a place to live. I wanted to buy a project, had it under contract, and something just wasn't right to me. And I walked in and I don't know what led me to believe or what even came on my radar screen of thinking about Chinese drywall. But I start looking, I take the covers off the the outlet switches, and I see that the ground wires are all like graphite black, and sure enough there was Chinese drywall in the property, and so it was easy to say no at that point. You know, nothing. But
if you don't know,
it's what you said earlier in the show. It's what you don't know that can hurt you.
Exactly.
So, you know, don't be afraid to ask for help. But
so they're really at an advantage having somebody like you, because you do know enough to ask them. And we go back to the money's not hard to get. It's if you do not have the knowledge yourself, or the deal is lacking, this is when it's not the money, it's the deal. The deal fails. And you have to have confidence in that. And it's okay to ask the right questions, and it's okay to find out that it wouldn't be a good project, because that's the time to pay. That's the time to find it out. When a prospective new homeowner comes to me and I tell them, you know, we're going to buy as is. That's what a lot of contracts are here in Florida. I always tell them, you know, you're going to have that period to do your due diligence and inspect the home. And I preface that with, you pay for that inspection as a buyer. You pay to inspect the seller's home so that you can have the privilege of walking away so you don't make a big mistake.
Sure. Yep.
And that's a gift you give yourself. And a home inspection isn't cheap. And a good one, if you're going to be thorough, can go anywhere from $400 up to $1,000, depending on what you're inspecting if you start scoping pipes. If you really like a house and you really want to make it a home and you're going to spend $240,000, don't you think you should take that very seriously?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
It's worth the $1,000 investment.
And the more that you're out there, as from an investor perspective, I mean, it's one thing, absolutely. The homeowners who, are buying these as basically their life investments to stay in with their families, raise their families, etc. They may not have much of any knowledge, depending on where they came from. The investors, probably half our